Ultimately, there are three ways that you can penetrate with the football. One, through. Probably the most satisfying type of pass is the defence splitting pass where the ball travels through a defensive line. A through ball immediately takes out any number of defenders and renders them ineffective in your opponent's efforts to defend. The through ball that arrives at your striker's feet is the easiest for them to control, to manipulate and hopefully direct into the goal. However, it's also usually the hardest pass to make as it requires the right opportunity, expert execution, timing on behalf of the passer and the receiver, and a through ball is usually easier to intercept than other types of passes. Alternatively, you can penetrate a defensive line by going over. This is much easier to execute as there is a lot of space above the defenders' heads, and it is impossible for the pass to be intercepted unless it has been blocked at the moment of execution. Sometimes this approach to penetration is derided as long ball football, an ugly football, and something that hasn't been coached properly. However, when we see teams counter-attack from deep and see strikers exploit the space in behind, you could argue that going over is an incredibly effective way to penetrate. And lastly, the third way to penetrate a defensive block is to go around it. You'll frequently see teams try to exploit space in wide areas where there are generally less defenders. Also, the pass played from a wide area in behind a defensive line is very difficult to defend. Now, as mentioned at the start of this lesson, there is of course effective penetration and ineffective penetration. Whilst penetration is the most important principle of play, your team and the players you coach also need to be adept at performing the other attacking principles of play. And we're going to look at those next. Before you do go on to the next lesson and the next principle of play, take a look at your worksheet. There are 3 questions there for you to answer, or at least consider, to help you with your next coaching session. Ask yourself, how do you instruct your players to penetrate the opposition lines? Do you go through, over, or around? How do you structure your sessions to engage your players in this key attacking principle of play? And if you asked one of your players what penetration meant to them, and how does his or her team penetrate the opposition, what would they say to you? Use your notes to help you plan your next training session or sessions on penetration.